Next, we're going to have a look at the compliance functionality in HRS Pro. Compliance values and fields can be set up in the admin area of the database, and then once they're set up there, they can be pulled through onto candidate records and also onto job records. So for example, at the moment I'm in a candidate record, as we can see, called Stephen Segal, and over on the right hand side of their tabs we've now got a compliance tab at the end, and if I click on that we'll see that it's empty at the moment. So if we want to bring through the compliance fields for this particular candidate, if I go and click on the green plus on the right hand side, up pops a dialog box, and we can see at the top that I've got two categories of compliance labels and then the individual labels or names of those fields underneath. So if I just want to add a couple for this particular candidate, I can flag them individually. Or if I switch those off, if I go up and select the passport compliance category, we'll see that it automatically switches on all the passport labels below. Switch on the visa one, and it switches on the other two as well. So I want to add all the compliance fields to this candidate's record. So I'm going to leave both categories selected at the top, click the continue button, and those categories and labels are brought through. Now we can quite clearly see from these colours on the on the right hand side, which of these labels are required to be populated to be able to add this candidate to long lists for jobs and also for placements. So over on the left hand side we can see I've got things like a passport date, which has been set up as a date value, so I can choose a date for the passport. Passport number, now we can see that that is required to be populated to be able to add this candidate to a long list and also to be added to a placement. So once I fill that in and move off, hopefully you can see that those values or those colours disappear because obviously I've populated it. Whether or not they're a British citizen, that's been set up as a yes/no checkbox. Now the next one is a passport scan. This requires a document to be put against that value or that field so that they can be added to long lists and placements. So I'm just going to click on this little icon, and then I'm just going to find a PDF, obviously can be a picture, any type of graphic, and add that in. We can see again that the requirements have disappeared. Whether or not they have DBS clearance, again if I switch yes, those disappear from the right hand side. Visa expiry date, now I'm not actually going to put a date in there because I want to leave this particular label unpopulated so that I can't add Stephen Segal to a long list or a placement, to show you how that works in a minute. Visa type, hopefully if I click on there you'll see that that's been set up in the admin area as a drop down, so I can choose what type of visa the candidate has got. So he doesn't obviously comply fully because he hasn't got a visa expiry date filled in. What I'm now going to do is go into a job record, and this particular job is a permanent job and we can see it's already open, and inside job records we also have a compliance tab. Now the default for each jobs compliance tab is that you're going to ignore the compliance, so hopefully you can see this checkbox on the right hand side is already on, but I want to put compliance on this particular job, so I'm going to switch that off. And then just like I did on the candidate record, I'm going to click the green plus and I'm going to add the compliance fields that are needed for this particular job. Excuse me. So I'm going to switch both categories on at the top, click continue, and again they're all brought through. And we can see that some of these are already set to comply for adding to a long list and also to comply to be added to a placement. So that's just been brought through from the admin area where it's been set up. But obviously I can change it for this particular job if I want to, just by editing whether or not it's necessary for the candidate to have that value populated to be able to be added. So we can quite clearly see that the visa expiry date needs to be populated on the candidate records for them to be added to a long list and also to be able to create a placement. So with that on, I'm now going to stay in this job and go to my long list, and I'm going to try and add Stephen Segal, and it shouldn't let me because obviously he hasn't got a visa expiry date filled in on his record. So I'm going to click the green plus on the right hand side, and then I'm just going to find Stephen by typing in part of his name at the top, and there he is. And then as we click on Stephen's name, we obviously get that warning to tell me that he does not meet the compliance requirements for this job. And it asks me if I want to actually go straight to the candidate's record from here. So I'm going to say yes. And that will take me straight to Stephen Seagal's compliance tab, and I can quite clearly see which fields he doesn't comply for. So I'm now going to go and fill in the expiry date for tomorrow, and obviously we see all of the information disappear on the right because he now qualifies. Notice also while I'm in his record, it shows me the job that I was looking or trying to add him to for a compliance check. If I now just go back to my job again, so just by clicking on jobs at the top, back to the long list, and obviously if I now try and add Stephen Seagal, it will let me. And there he is. So he's been added to that company, that job, because obviously he now complies with all the compliance items that I've set up on the compliance tab inside the job. If I just go back to Stephen Seagal's record once more, and back to his compliance tab, and here we can see it's got a little button that says select all clear jobs for compliance check. So we can see that he didn't actually comply when we tried to add him to that job earlier because it's on that particular tab. And if I just click that box and then hit clear, that will obviously disappear because he does now comply. And that's how to use the compliance functionality in HRS Pro.